Om Shanti. Welcome to Interview with Raj Yogi. And this evening, we're going to continue exploring this idea of using time while away. And as usual, we'll start with a reflection. How can I use these moments that we call seated meditation, these moments of solitude, these moments of reflection? How can I use them in the most powerful way? These moments alone with my own company are quite precious. They're moments where I can check in rather than check out. Take stock of what's going on inside. Explore new ideas. Ensure that the highest quality of thoughts and attitudes are operating. And be very honest with the self. When I learn to use time with myself in a worthwhile way, I'll start to naturally use all other resources in a worthwhile way. Time in action, time in interaction, all will be transformed when time with the self is of the highest quality. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Welcome to those who have joined our second part of using time in a worthwhile way. So, we usually often touch on some really important elements during these interviews. It is about Raja Yoga. So, I know we talked a bit about last week about what's the difference if we were just to have this conversation outside of Raja Yoga. So, what has your experience been like in terms of the experience of the awareness and experience of being a soul with my relationship with time?
Obviously, in any circumstance, one's reference point is quite pivotal. And so when it comes to the use of time or any resources, there's really just two options in terms of the reference point or the guiding force. One is that my image will dictate how I use time. So that's a very temporary, illusory concept of the self. And the other is my true self will dictate how I use time. And that's where soul consciousness comes in. So when we focus on soul consciousness, it reminds me a lot of, for so long, they thought the earth was the center of the universe, or at least of our little solar system. And then we changed it to the earth and how much, to the sun and how much that changed things. When I shift the reference point, the center point, the driving force, then everything shifts. When we say that I am guided or driven by the image, it's the same as saying I am driven by a lack of self respect. And when we say that I am driven by a true sense of self, it's the same as saying I am driven by self respect. So it's quite an important shift.
It always feels like these sessions, it's kind of like a network of elements. And it's never ever to detract from the topic at hand, but no, this aspect of self respect in itself would be a topic. But if you could elaborate a bit more about self respect, because that's, I would say it's a loaded word because we
Mm-hmm.
use that in ways that I think that perhaps maybe we don't really understand what that
Mm-hmm.
means.
It's really, one's perspective or vision of the self, which very much shapes one's sense of their own value. And if, just if we think it through, I think we'll kind of arrive at the destination without taking the Raj Yoga course. But if my sense of self is based on external things, so that might be the people I know, or the things I have, or the position I hold, or the actions I'm performing, or even the state of the body, the appearance of the body. If my sense of self and my value is based on those things, it becomes a problem because those are all temporary or ever changing, which means my sense of self and my own value will fluctuate. And that becomes a problem. And there's a whole dynamic that emerges where I am constantly wanting things that will make me feel valuable, but I'm grasping at straws because it's ever changing. If we shift it to something eternal or constant, the what we say eternal or timeless sense of self, independent of everything temporary, then that means that my sense of value stabilizes. It's a very high form of wealth. My sense of value will stabilize.
Sometimes it's interesting asking these questions on the spot if you've got
Mm.
things you can recall, but
Mm.
can you recall like maybe a circumstance for yourself where there's a pressure of time, but it kind of boils down to, this aspect of image in terms of, because it does feel like, just listening to you share through these years that one can develop uh, a capacity to override, but not in a harsh way, but it's perhaps a letting go, a lightness, just a shift in how one responds.
I was thinking about this a bit today, actually, because it's actually finding a very specific balance. What tends to happen to us, because we don't have the method, is we just throw the whole thing out. We just reject the whole thing. But I was thinking today, because there's always seeming to be the pressure of man made time. We have to get things done, and always asking the question, well, what happens if it doesn't get done? And so then so say, well, I just won't do anything. It doesn't, it's all, it's all image. And that's not quite right either. And I was thinking today this idea of wanting to be accurate but not arrogant, reliable but not reactive. So it's not that I, as we say, step away from all action because I'm concerned that every act I perform will just get caught up in my image. That's not a solution. What I want to learn is how to stabilize in a true sense and perform actions. So, still, if you will, bringing my best to the day, but it is not shaping my value. It's a very specific balance that really, without soul consciousness, it really challenges soul. They either lose themselves and everything or they reject it. because it's just, it's a bit like having an eating disorder. Well, I'm not able to eat properly, so I'll stop eating. That's not a solution. I have to learn how to eat properly. I can't stop eating. So similarly, every time I act, every time there's time, I'm worried about image, and so I'll just stop. And many, many do this and think that they're being very spiritual, but it's not really honest. I can't stop performing action, but I have to learn how to, um, if you will, reform or purify my activity.
Do you find it's you know, a good idea to maybe just like aim for just seconds of being able to feel real? Because it's sometimes I wonder if it's such a high destination that
Hmm.
some just, okay, I don't think I can even bother trying.
I think even 1 second in the day is an improvement over none. And I think it's why we have this practice of traffic control, or these intermissions in the day, even the seconds, where we just kind of check in, and also why the beginning of the day is so important to lay a foundation. Otherwise, I do not have a fighting chance. But yeah, it's, there's that myth, that those stories about drop by drop. The ocean is filled drop by drop, and it's true. One drop is better than no drop. 5 seconds is better than no seconds, and they will slowly accumulate. But I want to have a very powerful start to the day. Yes, of course, that isn't really integrated into my daily activity, but it's setting a good foundation to improve the chances that there might be a second during the day when I am able to find that balance.
It does remind me of the story of the tortoise and the hare. I know we shared that
Mm,
story a few sessions ago, but I was thinking about that in terms of like one more second, accumulate, one more second, accumulate.
mhm.
If I can be meaningfully systematic, perhaps in my focus, it's like I don't know, whatever task you're doing, you get on the computer, you completely forget everything. Or maybe just okay, one more second, tomorrow I can, and just sort of keep aiming for that. Because I think sometimes we do one thing, which is like, I just want to be peaceful, and we have no plan, we have nothing
Yeah.
concrete, or we just go, okay, I don't even want to bother because it just seems too overwhelming.
Yeah, I was going to say it's great if one can set a program or homework for the self. Every soul knows their life, their schedule best. So we're given broad, very specific directions, but they're quite easy to apply to our personal circumstances. So the very broad direction we're given is, as much as possible during the day, remember who you really are. Remember your spiritual identity, that I'm not all this stuff. I'm a soul, a traveler through time. And remember this incredible relationship with the Supreme Soul, who becomes like this beautiful, it almost feels like a brace, that keeps me aligned. Remember that one so that I can stay sort of in an accurate state as I go through the day. And that can apply to anything. Like it's very mobile. You can really use it in every situation. So, given that direction now, how is that direction going to look in my day? Do I have a program? That's, I think, for us to each personally explore. So,
And perhaps we've touched on this maybe in the timing topic, but timing and using time in a worthwhile way will definitely, if not even, it just gently just transitions in a natural way to this aspect. I was thinking about the aspect of the law of karma. I know for some who may not have taken the course, there are these spiritual laws, that are actually even beyond the power of God, but sensitive to these laws of just our intentions, our choices we make. In terms of using time in a worthwhile way, and you were sharing about depends on what my point of reference is. Uh, we are often, badgered by this aspect of expectations. And so that seems to be riding in our awareness all the time. Okay, if I slow things down, I think that perhaps maybe that's a part of feeling overwhelmed is that, well, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? And just to give oneself a chance to be able to go into that awareness. Hmm.
Yeah, it's really, I more and more I see the importance of this really simple direction, because there are so many places that we can get trapped or fall. Um, and it's we've told the Pink Panther story so many times. I still want to operate at my highest potential, but without the insanity or the pressure, or if you will, the inner violence. So, how to, because I hear soul, it's quite easy. Oh, be easy, that's great. Absolutely, you should be easy. I still enjoy that story about Paramhansa Yogananda trying to catch the train. That due to circumstances, he arrives a little late, and he's running to catch the train, and someone watching him says, "You're a yogi. Why are you running?" And he says, "Yes, I'm a yogi, but I'm not stupid." Like, if I don't run, I'm not going to catch the train. But it doesn't mean I lose my stage. And so it's a really fascinating. And then it does start to fall into the law of karma. I start to create a certain kind of life based on operating a certain way in action, not avoiding action, but operating. I start to create a certain kind of life. So I just find a very interesting topic, this integration of my own worthiness into action, or if you will, the use of time, the choices. So it's a really important topic. And I think a lot about our predecessors in this study, who we call the daddies and dadas, the original students of the study, and what they accomplished. My goodness, thank goodness they figured the balance out. What they accomplished is absolutely superhuman. Um, and they're very, easy and light, and, no worries, but massive projects. And, they can say, oh, we need to be easy. We shouldn't do less. And it's like, they were always like, well, how can I do more? How, Dadiji was famous for this. They would just finish a program for, 5,000. They look at her and she'd say 10,000 next time, and so it's really fascinating, this tapping into one's highest potential through soul consciousness, because we actually are we're not operating at full capacity, anywhere near full capacity. Um, so it's not about backing away to be an easy yogi. It turns out an easy yogi can accomplish so much more, but they're not driven through the wrong motivation, which is begging, right? I was thinking a lot about this word Rajrishi, royal renunciate, and this idea of having such, the objective of Raj Yoga is so beautiful. It is the highest state of personal dignity. There really isn't any better objective. That is the whole objective of Raj Yoga, one's own royalty. And so imagine moving through life with one's dignity constantly intact, never begging for approval or looking, these expectations, all of these things, liberated from all of that. That saps our energy, those types of things. So if we're freed from all of those, now all of our energy can be used to accomplish superhuman things, and we don't even care. They're just play for us, right? It's not that we stop doing things, we actually can do so much more, but we're liberated from any attainment from the outcome. It's just the joy of expressing one's highest potential.
Feels this is very relevant to my next question, actually. And it's about the law of karma again. our relationship with time in general. And it seems like, I'll use this word specifically, seems like it's different for different cultures. And I use
Mm-hmm.
that word specifically because I did find it's very illuminating being in this study to learn it's not about culture. It's about something we call sense scars, these really deep, habits that have been entrenched that aren't our real selves, but then our relationship and experience of what time is. But what is the implication when I'm moving around in falsehood? When you had shared, not sure if it was last week or a couple of sessions ago when we started the aspect of time, it's about series of choices. But our relationship with time, someone's like, I'm always late, or
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I never have enough time to do something, as if time is like something out there,
Mm.
But it's more than
Yeah,
choices, is what our experience is
it
like.
is. And value, so much about value of resources. The bottom line of using time or thoughts or any resource in a worthwhile way, the bottom line is it depends on self worth. And if I operate through from that perspective, from a very high level of self worth or personal dignity, I develop a very beautiful account with resources so that there always seems to be time for someone who uses time in a worthwhile way. There will always be funds. There's a beautiful for who someone who uses funds in a worthwhile way. Um, there's so many stories in the Yagya. We hear about this again. The senior students who funds contributions would come in immediately, not using it for the self or to increase their own sense of value, but immediately, how can they be used to serve others? Immediately, it would flow out, and it just then would come in, and more would come in because it's being used from such a stage of self worth. So, when we use resources in a stage of self worth, it is said that they start to serve you, they bow down to you. So, yes, some have a very challenging account with time because they've been abusing it, using it from a stage of no self worth or low self worth. So then, to always be late, it's a challenge for the other people. And so you're not setting up a good account. You can say, well, they know I'm always late. It's not a good account. So it's just like if you value the self, then you would value other people's time. And so it's just something we have to explore in the self of what's driving me, what's going on, rather than just be resigned. This is the way it is, because there is a lot of karma. And so then the resources, I was thinking about this today. Everyone's got 24 hours in a day. Everyone's life, though, looks completely different. So, and you could say, well, because of this, that, but how did that arise? How did those difference of circumstances arise? So, and it's important to know that because that means then I can transform. If I'm experiencing sorrow, it is in my hands to transform by making different choices. Choices not externally based, but choices that are based on self worth. I can transform.
It's making me think about quality of experience. And I know, again, I was using that word on purpose, culture. And I know Judy had shared about what time looks like in the Caribbean culture,
Mm,
and um, and what time looks like in a place like this. It's very
mm,
different in terms of
mm,
the experience and maybe the expectations. But it seems like our relationship with time right now has a lot to do with desires, desires,
mm.
desires.
Yeah, I mean that's again the low self worth. I want, I want, I want, so I feel more valuable. And then the wanting actually has the opposite effect. It decreases our sense of self value. So yeah, it's such an important, again, that balance to discover where I'm not, it's not like that crazy frenetic violent level of life, but it's really magical to watch a soul who is operating from that stage of self-worth and how really how much they achieve. I mean, we have a very good example in this phenomena called avyakti paravar. Um, that it has to be operating from the right energy to be able for what 14 months now to put out basically a 2-hour production every single night. And sort of I tangentially get a glimpse of what's going on, but it has to be driven. It's just not sustainable if it's not driven from the right place. So an aspect of time as well as to be tireless, right? So always having to look at what energy, what alignment is driving me. It's not just about the actions, but what's driving me. It creates an account.
So, what is God's function in terms of this aspect of time, especially if we have such a unhealthy account with time?
So God's function in everything is to purify. And so what's happening is I'm seated, I'm just in my little meditation room. I'm having an amazing experience. Everyone's always saying, I have the most amazing experiences. No one has as amazing experience as I have, which is great. It's wonderful. Amazing experiences of being a soul. It's so beautiful. And then the phone rings and where did I go? I lost that amazingness. And so what we discover is that, yes, I have amazing experiences of self-worth, but these other sort of, we call it, this alloy is still in there that's going to disrupt the transfer of that amazing experience into action. So God's job is to remove the not me bits. That's his job, so that when I come into action, there is no interference. So we say he's the purifier. He's removing these alloy, these other, if you will, illusions within the soul, removing those so that when I come into action, there won't be any interference or sabotage of the cell. So that's kind of his job. So again, thinking of him a bit as that brace, it's very interesting. I remember once um, just an injury for the shoulder, and it's structural, so it would require surgery to fix. But so many physiotherapists I go to, I can fix this. They would say to me, we can fix this. And I'm like, really? But that's okay. So one was getting absolutely desperate to try and fix it. So he duct taped the shoulder. So he put duct tape to keep it in place. But you said sanskaras, the structural thing was so deep that it literally ripped. The moment I moved the arm, the duct tape just was ripped off. It just was, completely destroyed. It would require super glue, to keep that alignment as you come into motion. And so that's kind of God's job. He's like this incredible, strong brace. As long as I connect to him, he is guaranteed I will keep you in alignment, but you have to connect to me honestly. You can't just say my name. You have to honestly, kinesthetically be connected to me as you come into action. And then I will keep you in place so that you are driven from a very pure place as you perform action.
Sounds like that there's a relationship between just this inner honesty and the use of time, then.
Mm, absolutely. I think you mentioned desires earlier, that these other forces are always going to be interfering and disguising themselves as well-meaning. We use the word royal sometimes, so that, it's like, no, but I did in an innocent way. I did everything right. I don't understand why it turned out. It's like, but if I looked honestly, I can see that there were still little desires, operating, attached to certain outcomes operating. So I have to be really, really clear, and really a lot of love for the self, obviously, but courage and determination and deep, deep understanding. So important to have deep, deep understanding, to be honest.
It's interesting. We're talking about honesty because I was thinking about this morning's class about it's, instead of being defeated every single time, it's better just to be honest, and
Hmm.
what can honesty do? And you just keep, trying to change, but something is a little bit off inside that you can't possibly see, perhaps.
Hmm. I mean, we're kind of coming full circle. I notice that you put in the title using timing in a worthwhile way rather than using time, because we're coming a bit full cycle to timing, that my time won't come until I have a realization. Like I can't really shift out of an old dynamic until I have a realization, which we know, is a concept of forgiveness. So, yeah, I have to. And it's very beautiful in this organization. We call it a university. And usually in a university, one is clever just by, I don't know, studying over and over the textbook. That's how we used to prepare for an exam, is you just keep studying over repeatedly. That's not how this university works. That's not how you're clever. You're not clever by repeating anything. Cleverness is measured by purity in this university. So the more and more I can come into the truth, the more and more I can come into the truth, that purity. So very, very simple. I don't want to be that old kind of clever, but I do want to be clean or honest, very pure. So that will make a huge difference.
I don't know if it was last week or the week before. We talked about courage because choosing to use time to feel and experience the truth is a very invisible thing.
Mm.
And it feels like it's connected to honesty and the law of karma, to choose to want to do something that's so invisible. But this aspect of courage, I was thinking a lot about that word actually. And it feels like it's protecting that faith in myself. And so that's what I continue to honor, even though there might be resistance.
Yeah, I think that sense of courage. Someone witnessing says, "Wow, you were so courageous," but the person themselves might say, "No, it's what I had to do. Given how I understood the situation, it's what I had to do. If I wanted to be able to live with myself, this is what I had to do." So it's again that realization, that recognition. So it's really enabling us to be able to not keep doing the old stuff. That's a huge waste of time because we wish for something different, but we're doing the same thing. So time is not being used in the best way.
Maybe I'll sneak in one last question. When you were sharing that this is just what I have to do,
Mm.
is there this element? Can you share a bit about what role disinterest plays in that?
It's huge. So this is back to the Rajrishi that in that objective of Raj Yoga to create that very high level of personal dignity. Once one tastes that, we call it tasting the sweetness of heaven. Once one tastes, and that usually is a huge part of the connection with God, as if God is, it's like a mirror allowing me to see my highest stage, my highest level of dignity. Once I taste that, I really have distaste for lower senses of, degraded, even though I fall into it over and over, but I've tasted what's possible. And so I have distaste is the term we use, or disinterest in anything that will move me away from that experience. So it's huge in terms of helping me to make choices. Um, now it's like, is that going to move me towards or away? And I was thinking a lot today about that term we have here, to be loyal to the royal within you, and how much during the day we are disloyal to the self in such subtle ways we don't even know we're doing it until the purity starts to increase, and then we start to feel it more and more, that, oh, I just did something that really was not an expression of self-worth. Yes, everyone else thought it looked good. Everyone else was very happy. But I know that I subtly manipulated to win approval or whatever the case may be. I know that, and so I can feel that I was disloyal to the self. It's almost as an expression of I don't quite trust my own worth. So once with God, I taste the pure self, this high level of self worth. It's like I want to move towards that stage. So that gives, I suppose, the courage, but also now I'm going to make different choices.
I guess it's contingent if I'm having a real experience.
Yeah.
It's powerful now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's on the outside. Someone could be sitting very still in yoga and they could be totally peaceful and blissed out. But is it Raj Yoga? Raj Yoga is to experience the royalty of the self. Very powerful, powerful stage. Peaceful, absolutely. Loveful, absolutely. But also pure, royal.
Thank you. Very beautiful session. I think we're going to add tireless to one of our topics.
We'll have to stay up all night for that one. You'll have to join us in the middle of the night.
Yes, for our tireless session. So, our next topic, I think we're going to continue with these two-part series because I feel it's very meaningful to explore the significance, but always touch on the aspect of the
This
cornerstone
one
of
is
Raja
part.
Yoga. This is part 2.
No, it's
But,
not.
oh, sorry, we're
It's just a
missing it.
part.
In time, it's going to show up. Our next topic is spiritual readiness.
Oh, great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
Very
it's
good.
again connected to timing. Are you ready? So, what does that look like? Right, we will have a little reflection now.
We live in a world that seems so fast paced. Even in these very unique times, there still is a sense of rushing for it to change, rush. But it's nice when I'm inside to experience even a second of absolute stillness, the timeless state, the eternal state, where I'm completely absorbed in what is beyond time. My own immortal state as a soul. My eternal relationship with the Supreme Soul. And my timeless nature of pure silence. When I experience what is timeless, it will transform how I operate when I come into the realm of time. I will move through time in a completely different way. When I taste the sweetness of what is timeless. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. We have a lovely comment. Thank you from Binny. Thank you, Raj Yogis, for this beautiful exchange of powerful energy. I agree that the Supreme Soul's job is to purify and remove alloy and we need to connect, and He guarantees the alignment.
Mm.
So, yes, we welcome questions, comments, even if it's not in the
Mm-hmm.
session, you're welcome to email the center's email address, calgary@ca.brahmakumaris.org. If you
Mm.
have topics that you would like covered in these sessions, I will
Mm.
hand it over to you, Judy. Upcoming sessions. Thank you again for joining.
Is there something coming up? Is it this coming weekend? Okay, this coming weekend, our inner compass. This coming weekend, we have a workshop. Sister Nora will take it up. It's 12 to 1:30 on our YouTube or Zoom platform. 12 to 1:30 on this Saturday. And you can go to the website. It is listed there. You can get the details on our website. And also, these sessions will continue on Tuesdays. I can see that there's another comment. Maybe Nora can share that. These sessions will continue. Drop in meditations will continue. Everything's continuing into April, into May. I'm so sorry. But hopefully, we'll be able to add another workshop in May as well. But for now, we have the workshop this coming Saturday. And there's another comment there.
Yes, Benny was touched by that aspect of cleverness in this university is not measured by repetition, but by purity.
That's always really touched me as well. Thank you so much, Binny, for sharing. Om Shanti.